Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is my problem solution walkthrough for Wiley accounting tools for business decision making. This is the 8th edition. This is problem 16A-5. The textbook authors are Paul Kimmel, Jerry Weingant, and Jill Mitchell. The question used in the presentation is copyright 2022 by John Wiley and Sons. All rights are reserved. This is for educational purposes only. The video may not be distributed or redistributed without the express permission of Wiley. The solution presentation is copyright 2022 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. The opinions contained in this presentation are those of Bennett Tchaikovsky and not the authors of the textbook or of Wiley. Okay. Before we say thank you to the bus driver, let's come right over here and let's take a look at problem 16.5. So we're still in process costing land. This is a weighted average process costing problem. I have not looked at the solution, so we'll see if I can go through and do it. So when we're looking over here at weighted average process costing, what is the real difference? It's how we go through and treat our beginning inventory with regards to equivalent units. But before we get going through and doing that, let's go first and kind of set up the question. So we have work in process, direct materials. We have our work in process conversion. And so what we want to go through and do is for our work in process direct materials in terms of the cost, we had beginning of $750. For conversion, we had beginning of $600. The direct materials during the month were $2,400. For conversion, which really refers to direct labor and then factory overhead, this is going to be $1,580 and this is going to be $1,240. Okay, so we've got these costs that are sitting in here and we need to try to figure out how do we get these costs over to finished goods inventory. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do it through the magic of equivalent units. Uh-oh. All right, so let's take a look right over here. Okay, so when we're looking at equivalent units using, and this is finished goods inventory, right? So let's go ahead and kind of start up over here and let's go ahead and look at equivalent units. Okay. So with the equivalent units, we're told right over here that we had 500. We had 500 equivalent units over here for beginning. We had started, and so we're going to call this, okay, we had started, and then we had ending. So this is 1,000, and this is 600. So when I'm looking at what we need to figure out is we're going to need to figure out what equivalent units are for both direct materials as well as for our conversion. So for direct materials, right over here. Okay, EU are equivalent units, not the European Union. But let's go over here and take a look over this. That might be a toxic name someday, so I got to be careful about how I say it. Okay, so right over here, so we had beginning, and then we're going to use started and completed. And then we're going to have ending. Now, in terms of the beginning, when we look at this for materials, it says that materials are added at the beginning of the production process and conversions are incurred uniformly. So as far as how complete these beginning units are, this 500, this is going to be 100% complete with respect to materials, right? This is materials, right? So these are going to be the units. So these are going to be at 100%. Now, when it comes to started and completed, how many did I go through and start and complete? Well, if I started 1,000 and I ended up with 600, my started and completed are going to be 400. And this would be the ones I completely finished during the period. So right over here, this is going to be 400 times 100% or 400. And then lastly, for materials, because remember, this is a tricky question. Why is this question so tricky? It is because, actually, that sounds like a character from Subway Surfers. But in this case over here, the materials are added 100% at the beginning of the period. So my total equivalent units for direct materials is going to be 1,500. Now let's go over and take a look at conversion equivalent units. So when we are looking at conversion for equivalent units, we're going to go ahead and kind of do the same thing. We're going to have our beginning. My beginning units over here were 500. Now, even though this says over here that they were only 60% complete with regards to with regards to conversion, we're going to disregard that. And because we're using weighted average, we're just going to assume that they were all completed during the period. My started and completed, this is going to be at 400 because again, I started with 1,000, I completed, and with ending of 600, that means I started and completed 400. This is also going to be at that 100%. And then lastly, though, for the ending, for my ending of 600, the percentage actually comes into play. So my percentage over here is at 40%. So over here, my ending is going to be at 40%. So for my equivalent units for my ending under weighted average is going to be a total of 240. Remember the big difference between FIFO and weighted averages. The only difference between the two is how we look at our beginning inventory in terms of equivalent units. If you've seen the FIFO videos where I'm taking that beginning and immediately moving into finished goods, that's just the way this kind of works. So our total equivalent units for direct materials, our total equivalent units for conversion are going to be right over here. So the next thing we're going to go through and do in this question is we're going to want to go through and say to ourselves, okay, now how do I move out these costs? Well, the way I'm going to go through and do it is through the process of equivalent units. But so I know because I took out 900 and I put them to finished good. Well, how do I go through and do that? I'm going to have to come up with a cost per equivalent unit. So my total direct materials cost, and when we're doing weighted average, we're going to include both the beginning and the cost during the period. So this is going to be at 3,150. And I'm going to go ahead and divide this by 1,500. So this is going to be roughly $2.10. Nice round numbers. It's great. Okay. Now over here for my conversion, my total conversion costs are going to be the 600 plus the 1,580 plus the 1,240 are a total of 3,420. My total equivalent units for conversion are 1,140. So when I go and divide this through, I'm going to get a total of $3 per equivalent unit. Okay, so now that I have my cost per, so this is my cost per equivalent unit, direct materials, this is my cost per equivalent unit for conversion. So now what I can do is I can do one of two things. I can either say to myself, okay, what's the value of the ending inventory? Well, the value of the ending inventory for direct materials is going to be 600 or 600 equivalent units times $2.10. And this is going to give me 600 times $2.10 or $12.60. When I'm trying to balance this T account, I basically saying 3,150 minus what equals 1260. This is going to be 1890. Now, how do I know this is going to, and this is what's going to be going over here to finished goods inventory. So this is where that goes. Now, how do I know, right, that that is correct? Well, 900, which is my beginning plus my started and completed, times my cost per equivalent unit should be 1890. So I know I did that correctly. So again, Now let's go ahead and use that methodology over here for our conversion costs. So over here, when we're looking at what did we actually go through and send out? Well, what we sent out to finished goods, if this is what was remaining, then we must have sent out 900. So if I take 900, which is 500 plus the 400 in terms of the equivalent units, I'm going to multiply that by 3, and that's going to give me 2,700. So my conversion costs are coming up from over here. It's traveling out of work in process into finished goods inventory. This is going to give me an ending balance right over here of 720. How do I know if I've done this correctly? Well, 240 times 3. So this is going to be 240 equivalent units ending of conversion times 3. This is going to be equal to 720. So again, I know I've done this correctly. So my ending inventory is going to consist of 1260 plus 720. And then my finished goods inventory is going to be consisting of 1890 plus 2,700. Now let's see what this question actually asked us to go through and do. So over here, it said the equivalent units of production for materials and conversion costs. So we said right over here, well, the equivalent units were 1,500 and then 1,140. The unit cost of production for materials and conversion. Well, this is going to be 210 and 3. And then what is the assignment of costs? So right over here, materials is 210, transferred out is 4590, which is basically between what left direct materials and what left conversion. And then my ending work in process is going to be how much? It's going to be 1260 plus 720 or 1980. So that's what we go through and do. And let's just go ahead and take a look at that book solution real quick, just to make sure we're on the right track. So here are the solutions from the textbook. And as you can kind of see, we're kind of coming up with the same answer. I just like doing things in T accounts because to me, it's a better visual and kind of a reminder of things we have to do, but you certainly don't have to do it that way. But if you look at this over here, we're getting to the same answers, right? So it's really going to be much more about like, what way are you more comfortable with in terms of going through and kind of figuring out what's best for you. You also really too, at the same time, you really want to figure out from your instructor is some instructors get very particular about how they want to have a question answered. My philosophy is I've had students who say, well, Bennett, I want to do a cost of goods manufacturing. It's like, dude, go ahead. That's a lot of fun. I'm not going to teach it that way because for me, especially when it comes to this portion of process costing, which, by the way, this is one of the harder subjects in cost accounting. And I've had plenty of students who have come up to me over the years saying, Bennett, like what you taught me was great. It got me through upper division cost accounting. And I'm like, really? Okay, that's sweet. I mean, but look, it's whatever works is going to work best for you. But frankly, I would really, really encourage you to go through and to use T accounts. Just because it's a better visual representation of what's going on. If you're taking my class, I would never give it to you like this. I'm going to tell you started and completed so you don't have to do that one particular step. So in any event, hope you have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a good day. By the way, before I'm remiss in saying thank you, Wiley. I want to again thank Wiley for allowing me to use their questions and make them public. And thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day.